Okay, so I think it was the 26th of February 2024. I collapsed in my home office some point towards the end of the afternoon, and my wife came home and found me on the floor at about 4 or half 4, something like that. Which point she noted the left-sided weakness and called the ambulance and told them, I think he's having a stroke. Unfortunately, the ambulance was a bit delayed, and anyway, they picked me up and took me to Lister Hospital in Stevenage, my local hospital, where they CT scanned me and confirmed it was a stroke. At which point they gave me thrombolysis. A thrombolysis is a clot-busting drug. Sorry about that yawn. It's a bit late. I've just been watching Arsenal in the football. That's incredibly effective if it's given early enough. But unfortunately for me, it was not early enough, and it caused a secondary bleed over here on the right-hand side of my head. And that's what caused the majority of the disabilities that I experience today. So as soon as they'd administered thrombolysis, they put me in an ambulance and sent me to Addenbrooke's in Cambridge, which is a leading hospital for neurological issues and has some brilliant neurosurgeons. And that was just done as a precaution, because at that point they didn't know I was going to have a secondary bleed. But I'm very glad they did. And the ambulance then took me to Addenbrooke's, and when I got there, unfortunately the worst had happened, and the secondary bleed occurred, and there was a rising pressure in my skull cavity. So they did brain surgery, removed a section of my skull here on the right-hand side, in order to operate and remove the blood that was in there and stem the bleed. And at that point, I went to neuro ICU, and I think I was there for a couple of weeks. And it was the most beepiest place I've ever been. Everything beeped, every piece of equipment, and there was many, many patients in there. And remarkably, I was one of the least unwell people, according to my wife. So I'd had brain surgery and got away with my life, but there were people in there who were far worse off than me. So anyway, I was there for two or 3 weeks, and at that point I was well enough to come back to Lister Hospital in Stevenage. So I was brought back there in an ambulance, and went to the Purton and Barley neurological wards. I can't remember which one was first. I think it was Purton first. And then I was there for about 3 weeks. And I made some decent progress there. Although when I left, my all-time record for sitting on the edge of a plinth was a massive 13 seconds before my blood pressure dropped like a stone, and I keeled over and had to be caught by a physio. But little did I know at that point that being caught by a physio was something that would happen many times in the coming months, when I got something wrong or my blood pressure dropped. And then after 3 weeks on the ward, not doing a huge amount of physio, I was lucky enough that a place became free at the Danesby Neurological Centre in Old Welwyn. At that point it was time for another ambulance ride. Hurrah! I absolutely hate ambulances. They are the most uncomfortable vehicle I've ever been in, without question. But the most amusing thing about this ride was my ambulance driver couldn't start the ambulance because his normal van was in for a service, so he didn't know. This one was a Fiat, I remember, and he normally had a Renault. He didn't know how to start it properly. So we sat outside the hospital with him frantically locking and unlocking the door to try and make the immobiliser go off. And then he finally got it started, and we drove down the road to Old Welling. And I arrived quite late in the evening and had a cheese sandwich, I remember, because that was the only food that was available. I was made very welcome, and it was the night of comic relief. And the reason I can remember that is because I had this involuntary movement in my hand while I was watching comic relief, and I sort of punched myself in the head. And I've since found out that was due to, spasticity caused by sort of background noise coming from my damaged brain. And that continued to happen throughout my recovery, actually. Anyway, I soon settled in at Danesbury, which is a wonderful place, and I was there for 6 weeks working with the physios and OTs there, and took my first steps there. Well, not first steps, obviously, but first steps post-stroke. And if you want to see some of my videos from Danesbury, I'll add a link underneath in the video description and in the blog post that I'm going to post as well tomorrow, which is Wednesday, the 9th of April, 2025. This video will be part of that blog post. And then after 6 weeks, I'd made good progress, but I still wasn't where I needed to be to go home safely. I couldn't climb stairs at that point. So they assessed me and thought I'd got more improvement to make, and sent me to the Marbrook Centre in St Neots, which is an absolutely incredible place, where they taught me so much. And I did a lot of hard work there, and a lot of hard physio sessions and OT sessions, but they're absolutely brilliant. Especially the head of therapy, David, and my superstar OT, Rachel, and all of the team were amazing there. And, the work that they did with me there has meant that I will lead a good life now. I'll be able to lead a good quality of life. And it's also true of all the people at Danesbury, of course, who laid the foundation for that. So Emily and Susie and Holly and Sarah and Rebecca, all of those people all contributed to my recovery and what I'm doing now. So that's my story up to the end of rehab. And then I came home in July 2024. So I've been at home now for, is that about 6 months? I'm not very good at maths anymore, because it's now April. So I've done my first winter post-stroke, which was hard. But I continue to improve slowly, and I'm getting places. The only problem is the early part of this year, I was diagnosed with epilepsy, but that's possibly to do with the fact that I had a cranioplasty operation in December, where they put a titanium plate over the hole that was under my skin over here. And that's to keep me safe in the future, and so I don't have to wear a horrible rubber helmet for the rest of my life. And you'll see some photos of that elsewhere on the page, and you'll see the cranioplasty plate as well, I think, on this week's blog entry. So it was quite a crazy operation. I looked like I'd been in a fight with Tyson Fury at the end of it, and recovery was hard, but I did get there. So I hope you enjoy the blog, and I'm excited about bringing you lots of good content in the coming months. Got some really cool things lined up with my work colleagues and the the wives and partners of other survivors to give a partner's perspective on what it's like for an injury like this to happen to a family. Because it doesn't just happen to an individual, it happens to all of us. It's had an effect on everybody in my family. My parents, my wife, and both my children, it's had a profound effect on them. And, I wasn't really ready for that part of this. That's been really hard. But I will talk about that more in the future. Thank you. Goodbye.